needs to be, negotiations need to be kept done in good faith. And negotiating in good faith is not negotiating out of a negotiation.
So at the 9/21 meeting, a school board member questioned my motivation for speaking out against the Concord High School contract. This member implied that I would not care about the contract if I did not have a child. But just like anyone else in town, my taxes paid for schooling before I had a kid, and my taxes will pay for the schooling long after my child leaves high school. She's not even going to enter high school until 2030. Perfectly fine with paying with an increase until then and after that. So it's understood that high school contract is a more expensive option, but it is a reasonable expense, and what you get for that expense is priceless. School choice provides more opportunities for everyone. It's a chance to find the best fit for your children, not just make the best of the only school option you're given. So Deerfield residents also need to understand that the tax increase would not even kick in until the 24-25 school year. There's so much fear in this town surrounding school choice. Many residents believe that if we don't sign a contract with Concord High School, that we will return to the dark old days when the students had to apply and possibly not get accepted. But that's not the case. I know at least one school very close by, Cole Brown, wants our kids. I also find it very hard to believe that Concord High School would not take any Deerfield students if we refuse the 90% stipulation, or that any minimum enrollment stipulation for that matter would be in place. And another source of fear revolves around a school like Cole Brown not catering to special education students. And I can absolutely confirm that Cole Brown does indeed produce and honor IEPs and 504s. Because what it comes down to is the more information Deerfield residents get, the more comfortable they become with the concept of school choice, but getting that information is difficult. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. So the school board rationale for supporting just Concord High School comes down to cost and only cost. It's not support for Concord High School based on merits, just cost. I would hate to tell my kid 8 years from now that she's going to Concord High School, not because it's the best choice for her, but because it was the cheapest option, right? So to summarize, Deerfield deserves high school choice.
So can I interject there?
Yeah.
It did not come just down to cost. You said that multiple times. It came down to a myriad of factors. I'm a parent of an 8th grader, happy to send my daughter to Concord High School because we looked at their programs and I'd seen your chart and side-by-side comparison and all of that. And I'm not going to convince you of my position, but I think that it's important to be careful with your words, and the way you frame things is not always accurate. And there was a lot of back-end work that went into this decision. And I'm not going to try and convince you, but I can say that as a school board member, doing what I think is best for the community, and as a parent with an 8th grader, I'm very comfortable with this decision.
I'm happy that you're comfortable with it, but I'm not comfortable with it.
And I understand that.
And the best answer to that is choice. You're comfortable, I'm not. So why does your comfort override my comfort? Why should I take your opinion that it's suitable over my opinion?
At this age, this debate is not going to be solved here tonight. So certainly appreciate it. There's other people that may want to speak. The decision of the board is to place the contract on the ballot as it's been presented, and that's what we're moving forward with. That decision isn't going to change between now and March.
I'm not necessarily trying to convince you.
I understand that.
Yes.
Give you every opportunity to come and speak at every meeting that you're at. But at this point, we're going to allow the floor to other people. Certainly appreciate your words as always, but we need to move on.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Kevin.
Hi, State Rep Kevin Virgil, 9 McCarran Road. So I have to admit, I was a little surprised to see what was proposed. We had a lot of public forums, we had ballot questions. There is overwhelming desire for school choice in this community. And what the school board brought forth essentially locks out any possibility for school choice for what I would characterize as 2 generations, 20 years. 20 years, you're going to lock out school choice for this community over one clause, which is the 90% clause. Now, I apologize. I don't follow you guys anymore. I just, I got other things that I have to do. So I'm going to address what I perceive is hearsay, things that I've heard secondhand that I don't know at firsthand. What I heard is your legal counsel has advised you to steer clear of contract agreements, tuitioning agreements with schools where you don't pay the full tuition. That somehow that invokes inequity, unfairness, and potential for legal liability. Your lawyer needs to do his homework. So those are called top-off agreements, right? So nobody's saying don't have a contract with Concord. No, I haven't heard anybody say that. What we're saying is dump the clause. If Concord's so good, let them recruit our kids. Let them attract our kids. And for the kids where that's not the right fit, let them go to any other approved school in the state of New Hampshire, right? And if those schools charge a higher tuition, you can pay the same amount that you pay Concord and leave it upon the family that chooses to go somewhere else to pay the difference in tuition, right? There is a long precedent of multiple school districts in this state for many, many years of entering into top-off tuition agreements. So when your lawyer Eckert comes and tells you that
Particular lawyer for the tuition.
doesn't matter whoever the lawyer is, they didn't do their
I
homework.
don't want you referencing the wrong attorney.
Okay, so I apologize to Mr. Eckert because he's a nice guy. Whoever's giving you that legal opinion doesn't know what they're talking about. They are misleading you because that is not the way it goes, right? Honestly, I prefer a contract with Concord because it gives people the warm and fuzzies. If you want to send your kid to Concord, go ahead. If you're afraid that there won't be a place for kids to go, Concord can be that place. There's nothing that shows us that there was any attempt to get that clause out of that contract. So it's a 20-year contract at 90%. And it's for that reason I think that contract has to get voted down. And I would hope that we would come up with something else. It's just the legal advice that you got that steered you wrong, and it's a sad state of affairs. And as for motivation, it does nothing for me, right? I got a kid at Co-Brown, I got a kid at Concord High. Whatever we decide is going to have no effect on my family's life at all, right? It's not my kids I'm advocating for. It never has been, right? It's the other kids in town. It's future generations. This town wants school choice. You know they want school choice. You've said it in meetings. You know it. You know it as well.
We also know the town is very clear they wanted it. They don't want it.
But
So-
that's the beauty of a top-off agreement is you can have a contract with Concord and you can allow students to attend any other approved school in the state of New Hampshire and let the families make up the difference.
And I certainly hear what you're saying, and that has been something that has been in my mind, but at this point, the decision made by this board, as I said to Mr. Whitmore, is the contract as presented, is what's going on the ballot.
Oh, I don't disagree. And again, I'm going to work hard and lobby hard to get that out. It is my intention to hold a forum in Deerfield, open to the public, not just for Deerfield, but for any citizen of the state or somewhere else, and have people come with expertise, with legal degrees that know what is possible for school choice and what is not. That is currently in the planning phase, and as soon as we get a date buttoned up, we will announce the speakers and we will announce the date and the location. And I certainly hope that every member of the school board will find a way to attend that. And it's going to be an open forum. There'll be brief presentations by the three presenters as an opener, and it'll be open to questions. And so if members of the school board and members of the public have questions, they can come bring them and get good factual answers.
Again, we've exceeded the 3 minutes. I've been trying to give you a little bit of time, but at this point, if you don't have any other comments that aren't advertising your event, I'd like to move on.
Yeah, I'll only make one other request to the school board, and that is when you go in to vote in March, I hope you vote against the contract that you've proposed, because that contract is not in the best interest of Deerfield students, and I hope you will join me and others in voting down that contract so we can get a better option for our kids. Thank you.
Kevin. Anybody else? Citizens' comments, public comments? Seeing, okay, come on up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I'm beating a dead cat. I'm Bobby from Brown Road.
I don't know why you're picking on the cat.
Oh, I know. Anyway, I know I've said it multiple times in different ways, and everybody is voiced, many people have voiced their opinion about school choice. I understand we have a really unique demographic here, and obviously if I move to Concord, if I move to Manchester, my kid's going to Manchester. I know I've said it in emails and in public forums, but a lot of people, when they moved here, were told there was a lottery and there was choice.
That
So-
certainly wasn't the school board that did that. That's a problem you have with your real.
I mean, some people have been here their whole lives, so so I'm just saying, like, one argument is you moved here, we go to Concord. No, that's not what we were signed up for when we moved here. And some people have lived here their whole lives and stayed in the community. When you proposed the last two ballot questions, do you want choice? Do you want choice with a cost? Your cost was not clear. The community saw the price tag of $4,000 and they thought, my taxes are gonna go up $4,000 if we have choice. That is, that survey ballot, because it was just, yeah.
So the reason why.
So it was misleading to them. They
So-
thought I have to pay $4,000 just for those kids to go to a high
Language on
school.
that ballot question, and Nate can certainly check it. And again, this isn't necessarily to be a debate, but this has been presented to the community this way.
Mhm.
It was $4,000 per student. That was the language in the article was, do you support it with an increase of $4,000 per student? Now, we've had people say, we should tell us what the tax impact of that was. Well, at the end of the day, the question was phrased as $4,000 per student. If you look at the budget, you see.
But they think per student, meaning I pay I pay as a taxpayer. It was misleading. I'm just saying, I'm in marketing. I get what you're
There-
saying.
There was
I
nothing.
read it.
There's nothing misleading about that question. Now,
Okay.
how people interpret it is I'm not in their living room to explain it to them. None of us are.
No,
But-
I'm just saying you can't take the result of that because so many people read that wrong. So you can't say nobody wants to pay a dime.
I certainly give more credit to the people in this community that understand what that meant than maybe you do. So I think we have a pretty well-educated electorate. And it does say.
You've presented it multiple times. I was there, I voted on it. I'm just saying,
Yeah, and the
People-
language is additional cost to the taxpayers of up to $4,000 per student per year. That dollar amount was basically the difference between what we've been paying Concord at the time to what Co-Brown's tuition was at that point. So the people in this town know how their taxes are calculated. They know how the budget affects it. They know how the impact is. You know, if we have 200 kids at $4,000 a student, it's $800,000. If you want to do the math and figure out how that impacts your taxes, it certainly does. We can't use that as a default. The most convincing response we get as far as feedback from the community is when we put a question on the ballot and we get, I don't know how many responses we had in that particular. 1,235 voters. So 1,235 voters, the majority of them said, yes, we like the idea of school choice. The same 1,235 voters, which is the largest sample we've ever been able to get in any one of these conversations over the last 7, 8, 9 years. The same 1,235 voters said, we support school choice. Don't make us pay for it. So that was something we explored. But
Okay.
unfortunately, there is no way to connect those two dots. Now, I
again,
understand,
I know what you think. I've been at every, like,
I've been at
sick-
every meeting.
oh no, I have a few that I've marked you out to. But anyway, I'm just saying, I know what you think. I'm saying, I also know a lot of people voted no because they thought it was they saw as a taxpayer, I pay, and yes, there are very, very intelligent people in this community. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you cannot take that advisory ballot question and say nobody wants to pay a dime more. Or you can't say we're not giving you any options, even though everybody on that, or not everybody, a majority voted we want choice. But just because they voted no on the 4,000 price tag tax, like, I'm just asking you to start thinking, because there is a large number who are going to vote no. So I'm just asking you to start thinking. Thanks so much. And that doesn't mean no Concord. We would love for kids to have that choice. Okay.
Anybody else? I
Hi.
don't recognize you, so welcome.
I
If you could-
apologize. I haven't been able to come. I
If we
work
can
really late.
Capture your name for the minutes,
Sarah
please.
Bell, and I live on McCarran Road. This is, like I said, my first meeting because I usually work until 7 and I can't make it. But I am a little frustrated by how defensive all the answers are. And I grew up in a town that had school choice. And it doesn't mean that the main school that people went to was a terrible choice. It just meant that we had a lot of other options. And people went to the school that was the right choice for them. And I think that, like you said, there's not a debate today and it's not getting changed. But I just ask that things be thought about in the future. And a 20-year contract for 90% of students just seems absurd. And Concord is not a bad place, but it's not for everyone. And I think it's really important that kids have a choice and families have a choice. It's kind of a bigger thing too, but education is extremely important, which I'm sure you guys know. You're on the Board of Education. And I think it's wrong to not have school choice. And if more of us were able to make meetings, I think more people would say something, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to get here and be heard today. So I appreciate you listening to me. And I really hope that we can move forward and have school choice in our town.
So I think I saw you pop up there.
Like a whack-a-mole.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Well, I don't know what's going on back there. We're petting cats, we're whacking moles, but apparently everybody.
Definitely the moles over the cats.
I'm worried about the back of the room.
As you should be. Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I sent an email after the last meeting because I couldn't stay till the second comments, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate you going forward. I mean, in real words, looking at projected stuff with maintenance on things out further than now. I think that'll really help the taxpayers understand budgeting allocations and kind of what's to come and kind of figure where their dollars are going. And I did just want to mention that I had dropped in that tidbit. I know you'd mentioned it during the building expansion stuff about the potential for like a solar idea, like maybe at the other site. I think it just kind of came up as like a blurb. But I didn't know if that was something that could be put back in to research more as kind of a revenue thing to come back at. I think the plan originally, or the thought, was using the South Road spot as like a solar farm. I don't know the right words for it, but and that came to mind when you had mentioned solar panels on the school, and I get a little nervous at thinking about putting some more weight up on this lovely roof here. But and then just aside from that, I've been doing a little bit of homework, and I found it really interesting that in 1990, which I do believe was the first year the school was open, this Deerfield Community School, George B. White would have been 89, that the National Council of Teachers of English, National Councils of Teachers of English, okay, I said it right, awarded the Deerfield Community School the Center of Excellence for Students at Risk. It was interesting to read this tidbit that it was recognized that the nature of DCS program benefits every student in the school because of its emphasis on the individual. I just thought I see it as a roots and wings kind of thing. I wouldn't say my experience was quite like that, but I see that as my son now. He's definitely pictured more as an individual versus in the school. And I think that was something this school essentially, I hope, has been rooted in and moved forward with. And I think the focus on the individual is important. So just wanted to bring that note to the table. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to start motoring along. So for agenda review, I want to shuffle a few things around. So I want to pull, there's a couple of items that we have. So we have to recess for a very brief non-meeting to just do a quick review of the teacher's contract that we need to approve tonight. So I'm going to move that up on the agenda. That's going to end up being the next item. And then we're going to add a non-public for item 7 under small letter C. Any of the other board members have anything else
Do you mean after the public comments is going to be non-public?
after public?
Separate from the CBA conversation?
Correct.
That's a non-meeting.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, so the CBA conversation that we're gonna have momentarily, we'll step out of the room for just to do one last quick review.
We're just adding a non-public at the end.
I'm gonna add a non-public in play, I'm gonna change number 7, item 7, under small letter C.
Smaller C.
Small letter C. And then for anybody else that's here, we had a resignation of a board member at our last meeting. So obviously there's a lot going on right now as far as trying to budgets and contracts and a number of other things. So it was on an abbreviated timetable, but we did request or I guess publish for people interested in being appointed to that role. So the intent, I think we had, it was 3 candidates for that position that sent in a letter of interest, and we're going to have a discussion about that and hopefully come to a consensus where we can appoint a candidate, one of those candidates to fill out the balance of Gigi's term. Or I'm sorry, to fill out the balance of the year for Gigi for the next election. So that would put that person in the seat until March. And I would like to have that person sitting at the table, although it's drinking from a fire hose, so that we can hand them a budget. They can start seeing what it's all about. So there's a couple of items we're going to do. We're going to get into the budget, which looks promising, and then kind of move on from there. So I want to recess here. It's 6:32. We're going to recess briefly. The board's just going to step into the other room for a minute and make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Thank you. You can come in. Is that going on? Can I have a?
Yeah, I know. No place I'd rather be. I don't believe you. I do comfy chair though.
Dollar sign is the SBISTR dollar sign. Yeah. If you can't get on, let me know and I'll use my credentials to get you on.
I thought I tried, but it didn't work. I'll try again. All right, thank you, Mike. Where'd they go?
Pretest today.
That was scary. I'm like, where did that come from?
I don't know where that came from.
Because everybody's muted, so,
I don't, wow,
sorry.
busted up my mojo.
It's unmuted now.
It's the mole or the cat.
It is, that was the cat. All right.
I would like to just express gratitude. I think it went really well, worked together very well this year, and definitely productive conversation on both sides.
Excellent.
Good negotiations.
I think it's going to be good for everybody. So with that, all in favor of the contract as discussed and proposed?
Aye.
That is unanimous, 4 of us. All right. Next up, we have the appointment of a new board member. So I believe all 3 of you are here. I know 2 of you by name, 1 of you I don't. And I apologize for that. So the 3 people that have expressed interest in filling the seat here that Gigi vacated are Kendra Cohen. Hello. And I'm just kind of going off the way they got printed off here. Kayla Stankard. Okay, and I apologize, we haven't met before, but hello.
Nice to meet you.
And as we progress down the pile, Mr. Cooper. So
I'm
Fir-
sorry, can I first?
I'm sorry, Matthew. All right, so first off, I want to thank everybody for applying to fill a role. Obviously, it's a short notice vacancy. And it's, you know, you never know if anybody will step up when these situations occur. And so I certainly, you know, before we start anything, I appreciate everybody being willing to jump in to the fire, frankly. So thank you all for that. We all received your, the answers to your questions. Earlier this week, we've all had a chance to review them. So, I mean, this is kind of an informal process, but I certainly, everybody received the same questions, so you all had the opportunity to answer the same questions. Do any of the board members have any questions for any of the, I don't want candidates, applicants, I don't know what the correct term is, but
Would it be appropriate to ask them just to say a couple words of introduction and sort of why they applied and what they hope to get out of it?
I certainly think that's reasonable if it's okay with everybody that is here. So seeing as you're in my packet in order, we're just gonna roll with that if that's okay with everybody. So Kendra, if you don't mind, come on up. Tell us a little bit about you and what your thoughts, goals, hopes are, and what will be a relatively high-paced environment as we're well into budget season.
people for coffee, having, having get-togethers where you can hear from a diverse group of people to really understand what everyone's perspectives are. It's going to be crucial.
Any additional questions? All right, I think we'll let you. retire from the
Thank
table
you.
and ask Kayla.
Yeah.
You're up next in the order that they're at least printed off here. So I guess we'll start with the same. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit.
So I'm Kayla Stankard. I've lived in town about 3.5 years. I'm over on Fieldstone Drive, one of the newer developments. I have one school-age child here at DCS. She's in the 1st grade, and I have a son who will be entering DCS in about 2 years. And we love this school system. And so it's only because we've been involved because we have children that we've become, kind of engrossed in what's happening and how us as not only now a taxpayer, but as a school member, if you will, and why we should care about what's going on. So COVID really opened our eyes with being able to watch the meetings from home. So while I wasn't here, I was on the camera and I was watching and listening and keeping up and all that kind of stuff.
With the person watching?
I was the one.
The one person.
Right. So, but it was important to me because I have never had a child in school before. So this is all brand new. And I went to private school for 1st to 8th grade and then public for my high school years. So that also being said, I'm the first with a bachelor's degree in my entire family. Like, education is important for us to then pass on to our kids. So that kind of interest is really what sparked me to want to learn a little bit more about why would I care about being on the school board, or why would I want to get involved with the town for this type of stuff. So my perspective coming in, I'm not an educator. I don't come from an education background, but I am a critical thinker. I'm a triage nurse by day. So I'm really good at listening. I'm really good at, getting everybody's opinions, gathering all the information and making the best decision for the multiple people that are involved, not just for the loud squeaky wheels. So, and I think that's important when on this board. And it's also important that, I am a community member, but I'm also vested with the children in the school.
Excellent. Any questions? Hey.
Same question. So again, when you're faced with this,
Yeah.
how do you balance, how do you plan
Sure.
on finding that balance between what you see for your own students, your own kids, looking at school and what's best versus the taxpayers, the voters at large? How do you
Yeah.
balance that?
So it's the same way I look at treating my patients. So I have a patient who, I also have a daughter that's the same age. I also have a condition that's the same. I'm not going to treat that patient the same way I'm treating my own family. So it's at the greater good is, ultimately what you're boiling down to. And I'm not timid when it comes to confrontation. I don't like confrontation. However, it's not something I shy away from because it's important to have these conversations to understand where people are coming from and take their perspective into account when making decisions. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any additional questions? Okay, we'll let you retire from the table momentarily here, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you.
You don't mind joining us? I think I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to ask you to do the exact same thing. If you want to roll into it, introduce yourself.
Sure. Matt Cooper, 350 North Road. Currently have 2 students attending DCS. My son is Jackson. He's in 3rd grade. My daughter Kyra, excuse me, bit of a cough here. Daughter Kyra is in 1st grade. We made the decision to move to Deerfield after transferring up here from Florida because we wanted to embrace community. So once we made the decision to move to Deerfield, we also wanted to make sure that we embraced being a part of the community, advocating for our children, making sure that we step up when there were opportunities to do so. When I saw the vacancy, my first thought was someone's going to step up. But then the thought that came behind that is if I'm not willing to take the opportunity to put the work in, then I have to stand behind someone else that potentially doesn't approach it the same way I do. Not to say that my way is the best way, but my intention is to try to digest information. To segue into the same question, if you don't mind, one of the things that I think is very important is to wear multiple hats when you're looking at a question. And the young lady that spoke before me, I think she did an admirable job talking about it. When you approach a topic, you're going to look at it as a parent. You're going to look at it as a school board member. You're going to look at it as a community member. You're going to look at it as a taxpayer. I think the most important part is to analyze those questions independently and then come up with an answer that's going to suit all needs. In the packet that was supplied to us, one of the questions asked about priorities. And I kept it generic and vague intentionally because I use it as a litmus test. My priorities are to advance academic excellence and maintain or increase safety of the children. And if I can approach each of those questions independently as a school board member, as a parent, as a constituent, as a taxpayer, and ask the question of, does this advance my agenda of ensuring that the kids have the most amazing educational opportunity possible while maintaining their safety? And the answer is yes, I can move forward and I can digest more information to try to come up with the best answer. And as I pass that litmus test through those different views, the goal is to basically reconcile everything together and make the most decision possible with the understanding that someone's going to be unhappy. I think it's important to acknowledge their unhappiness, try to determine if there's a way to come around and see their view, but ultimately you have to stand by your decision. So I put that together. I didn't know if there was a. Thank you.
So
That's jogged for me a couple, like, I don't know, I have a follow-up question. Is that appropriate? Can we keep?
no, I mean, it's an informal process to this extent. So if you have follow-up questions, I certainly let's start throwing them out and direct them where you want to direct them.
Maybe you just take your seats.
If you, that's what needs to be followed.
So my follow-up, thank you, and I think that that was a great answer and some good ideas there. And I guess my follow-up question is, the idea of public service and moving to town is great and wanting to get involved. To what extent have you been involved in some sort of public position in this community? And if so, how or to what extent has that taught you anything? I don't know. How do you feel about kind of being in this community and serving and being part of like a public figure or sort of position in this town? I guess, have you learned anything? But maybe we'll go in the same order if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
So you can state your seat.
Okay.
But public figure, what have you learned? I guess what have you get? What's your experience in terms of sort of giving to the town of Deerfield?
Yeah, so when I moved here, I sort of jumped in with both feet. So I immediately started volunteering at the swap shop on the weekends, which is a really interesting experience and highly recommend it. We need a lot more volunteers. I also volunteer as a ballot clerk. So I've done ballot clerking for the past 2 elections, which is an awesome experience. Again, if anyone wants to volunteer. It really shows you like the diverse group of people that lives in Deerfield. Everyone is so kind, so friendly. I'm sure we don't always agree on everything, but everyone is always awesome when they come in to vote and very excited. I have joined Town Softball League, which has been really awesome. I'm in the process currently of joining the zoning board. So as I've always said, I am a joiner. I try to get involved in a lot of stuff and meet a lot of people because I think I've always just had this sense of being civically engaged as something that's really important to me. It's a value that my family has always held very high. So it's been a really great way to get to know people in town. It's been really fulfilling in my life to get involved. And I think, obviously being on the school board, it would be even a greater opportunity to meet more people and get to know people in town even more. So I would really look forward to the opportunity to give back in that way.
I am not as impressive as a town member by any means. No, so I mean, my extent is the Blue Bowl was here when I moved to town, and that was my go-to. I loved everything about the Blue Bowl, and then that was ripped from me. So I'm just kidding. But no, the library is more because of the kids. We've been to the library a few times. We have our paper library cards, which is the coolest thing. But other than that, to be honest with you, my social calendar and my work calendar are not always so cohesive to allow softball and fun things like that. So
okay, but if you want to play softball,
but I mean, I don't know if my ACL would be up for that, but no, I mean, library, town hall, I vote in our elections, those kinds of things are really the extent. And I know and I love all of my neighbors that I live nearby. We have a Halloween gathering just for us, separate from the whole town type of thing. So it's my little close-knit group at home, but not so much widespread as much as I would love that. Yeah.
So my primary engagement's been centered around my kids, to be honest. So Deerfield Parks and Recs, when I was seeing most of my kids have been in every sports league that was offered every season, basically since they were at the age of 3 and they were doing the 3-and-3 for soccer and t-ball. Personally volunteered as a coach for baseball last year on my daughter's t-ball team, my son's AA team. I somehow got signed up for being a basketball coach upcoming for 3 and 4, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
On a side note, that is actually, that will be a wonderful experience.
I agree. I just don't know what I don't know. So I'm looking forward to that experience.
I knew nothing, but they don't know that you don't know anything.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm banking on the fact that they're 3rd and 4th graders and I can pretend like I know more. But I think for me, it's just really hopping in feet first and taking an opportunity to really try to cultivate and engage with the kids. I have met, quite honestly, most of my Deerfield associates and or friends through their children. Our children hang out, they become friends, we get to know each other, and you get the sense of communities around sports. That did in turn also transition to me becoming a little bit more active in the school board. I'm sure some of you remember I would come and step in, especially during COVID, some interesting times where people had different opinions. And I want to be an advocate for people that maybe aren't comfortable with public speaking. It's something I'm okay with, I'm familiar with, and it gives an opportunity to kind of voice a separate opinion that maybe is not heard when another side has more vocal personnel or people that are willing to step up.
Any of the other board members have questions? So, I mean, it was asked in you know, obviously we look at there's a couple of aspects we're faced with looking at. And the unfortunate task we have right now is I think all three of you will be more than capable and able to do an admirable job. And this can be a very rewarding experience. It can also be an incredibly infuriating professional experience depending on the day or the pandemic or whatever it may be. And so, you know, part of what I think, you know, as a board, you know, things that we have to consider obviously are the community elected Gigi, and they elected, to a certain extent, you know, they elected her to be representative of them. And so to a certain extent, Gigi always brought to us a much more empathetic, I guess, perspective and view is the way I look at things. And this is, you know, for us, you know, it's trying to fill that role it's a big set of shoes to fill. It's you know, she left a pretty sizable hole for us to fill. Obviously, this is a position that, you know, we want to find someone that is going to, you know, step in and run to continue filling that seat. So my understanding is that all of you are willing, not, you know, or interested at least in continuing beyond the next, say, 4 months and going long term. But we, for us, certainly, it's a big set of shoes to fill. She definitely brought in much, certainly a different perspective than mine in the equation. So do we have any other questions before we have conversation? All right, so we, does anybody have a candidate they want to move for us to take action on? Thoughts?
I'd like to just personally say thank you to all 3 candidates. I think you're all immensely qualified, and I really appreciate the fact that people want to step up, having seen what the last however many years looked like. And it's good to see people still want to get involved. And so I thank all 3 of you very, very much for throwing your hat in the ring.
Frankly, it's encouraging because I didn't know what to expect when you published for this position. It's encouraging. So I am glad that there's community members that are willing to jump in, that have younger children that are newer to town. We need that. This community needs that. And it's not just here. It's on the select board. It's on other committees. I mean, we need more of that. So Jeff and I are old dogs in this town that have been here forever and a half. Nate's been here for a while. It's good to see fresh faces. What do you guys want to do? Anybody?
Yeah, I can take a stab. Well, I'm not really sure, you know,
There goes the cat, the whack-a-mole.
just not horses.
No.
So effectively, we're looking for a motion to nominate. Is that?
Well, it's,
the appropriate path forward?
I don't even know if it's a motion, it's a nomination. So the way that this would work is we would take one or multiple nominations and it's it doesn't need to be a majority. Obviously it can be, but it would be if there's, multiple nominees, it would be whoever gets the most votes. So it's not like a regular motion.
Okay.
So it's like when we assign votes, right? If we had multiple assign votes. So, I mean, we can either, I guess one other way to do it would be just to, just cast a vote for a person. Go about it that way.
Probably some discussion would be
Yeah,
good.
it's been a while since we've done this. Yeah.
Would be a nomination.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
All right, well, I mean, I'll kick it off. I think the person that I'd like to nominate is what I'm doing, would be Kendra. I think having, previous exposure to family members, on school boards is valuable. I also think having somebody on the board that's a cheerleader and having younger kids, soon to be students coming up, will potentially fill a vacancy that we might have in the coming years. With our chair, who has said that he may be on his last.
Oh, I am so done for anybody that's wondering.
So,
Like 15 months I'm out of here.
so I think at the opposite end of the spectrum, trying to get, folks up to speed on our process, how we make decisions, things that, we're involved with. I think, should be a good candidate to start that process.
So we have a nomination for Kendra. Do we have any other nominations?
Need a second.
It's a nomination's only for a second, but it's just going to be.
No, I mean, I just think you guys are all very qualified. It's a weird situation to be in.
All right, well, we got to do something. So we have a nomination for Kendra. I'm not hearing any other nominations. So with that being said, take a vote on nominating Kendra to fill the remaining, the rest of the year for the seat that Gigi vacated. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Kendra, you're up. But in March, I'm hoping I see additional names because there's gonna be, we need fresh blood. All right, so I hope we see more. That, and again, thank you, everybody, for jumping in, because this is, like I said, it can be very rewarding, but can be entirely frustrating as well. That being said, Kendra, I'd like to invite you to participate in the rest of the conversations tonight. You will need to be sworn in, so you can't vote, but I want
Yes, I
you.
have a question about that part.
Yes.
By whom?
I think it's at the town moderator.
The town clerk and the
Yeah, it's
moderator.
a moderator and the clerk.
Okay.
Yeah. We will get you sworn in. I will sort that out. But with that being said,
I think it's,
I believe Dan.
Yeah.
So with that being said, why don't you come on up and take your abuse? As we move into the next part of tonight's meeting, which is going to be related to the
oh,
budget.
there's already one there.
So, with that being said, Kendra, participate, ask questions. You are a member. When it comes to voting, it's just going to be a four-person vote for the balance of the evening until we get you sworn in.
You know about the deliberative session?
I know about them,
You
yes.
know about, all right.
I was there last year.
So, in front of you, Kendra, you have a fire hose that we're going to ask you to start drinking from.
Yeah.
All right. So, we have this year's budget for anybody that is interested. And we don't have extra copies, it's just the board that has copies.
Yes, we only have a
Or
draft.
it's on
It'll be on the,
the,
it'll be on the, website.
Oh,
It's already on, I think.
I don't think so.
Unless what I'm looking at's wrong.
It's on the, in the drive. Drive is different.
I see 2023, 2024.
Yeah, but that might, maybe is that the first version that maybe
With
School Levy brought? Actually wasn't even in when I was finishing this, so I'm more than positive it's not.
The paper was still warm, Andy. You would know that
I
if you took the
literally was
paper.
printing at 5:15.
I don't like paper.
All right, okay.
And
So-
pedal to the metal here.
All right, so Amber is our business administrator. For anybody that doesn't know, she is the business administrator for SAU 53, which means she has the pleasure of doing this across 5 towns. So her time, especially this time of year, comes at premium. We get you tonight. and Tonight.
Tonight, and then I'll see you at the NBC.
You'll see us at the NBC. So, as board members, if we have questions, tonight's the night we have Amber before we have to surrender her to other communities to go through the process the same way. You've probably been to a few already, but
Yes, I have. I was one last night.
there was a, so with that being said,
And if you have questions, even though I'm not here next time, just
we'll get an
get
answer.
them Patty and show them, yeah, okay.
All right, so with that being said, a couple kind of things. Amber goes through and color codes the budget for us. So you can see the budget up top. Increases, decreases, when the NBC gets the budget in the near future, you'll start to see changes in the NBC makes reflected in purple. And then non-discretionary items, which we usually find plug in towards the end of the equation, we will highlight in green so that it just kind of becomes an easier document to digest because there's a lot of information. A lot of the stuff, you know.
What do you mean by non-discretionary?
So that.
Meaning cannot be changed. So, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? You don't know the answer to that?
So,
Makes it.
so special education lines, right? Those we're paying, we're doing them that way. So, and Kendra, ask questions, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I mean by cannot be changed means that it is our responsibility to cover those expenses regardless of,
The circumstances.
Yeah, got it.
We're paying them out.
So when you're looking at this, we do embed a lot of notes over to the left. You'll see a lot of writing through that. The proposed column, which is what we're proposing, is column X. The default is column Z. So because we're an SB2 town, we have to present 2 budgets. Okay, and someone like Pembroke or Chichester, they're annual. So they do not have a default, we present 1 budget, just so that you have how it is between the 2 towns. And so as Zach mentioned, anytime there's a change between meetings, I will always color code that in yellow so that you know what has changed between each time you've seen the budget. So the last time the budget was presented, it was presented by Principal Libby. It was mostly the meat of the budget that supplies, equipment, maintenance, all of those types of things were in the budget then. Tonight, I'm gonna go through some of the heavier items, which are the salaries, the benefits, some of like special ed, some stipends, things like that. So I think actually special ed was actually in there last time, but I'm gonna go through just the changes tonight, but if you have a question about anything, just stop me. And we can go over that, okay?
We, just for, I know the rest of the board knows this, but the far left column.
Yep.
The line numbers, that's the easiest reference just to get us to wherever you're looking. It also makes it for us to capture the minutes.
Yep, so what I'm gonna do is as I'm going along, I will say a line number. It's gonna coincide with whatever conversation, whatever I'm gonna mention.
Okay.
Okay?
Nate?
Yeah, one last thing is that we being board are setting the budget. So what that means is that I think you need to be sworn in first, but if you want to make changes, you can make motions and we can have the conversation and we can make changes to these lines. That is what we do as setting the budget. We're getting presented what their draft is, the administrations, but we're the board, we can make changes if we want to.
And okay, this might be a dumb question, but your budget is based on what? Like people from the school proposing things to you?
Yep, so we start with like a zero-based budget. We start from the bottom and build it up. So what happens is Principal Wibby will go and she'll speak with her departments. They determine what their needs are per year. And the reason why I say zero-based is because every year needs are different.
Yeah.
So that's one type of thing. We also take a look at the facilities. What do we need for facilities? What do we need for food service department? And then we also take a look at our staffing, look at our enrollment. And then basically it's salary and benefits, which tends to be the largest portion other than special ed. And tuition, I would say tuition to high school is the other very large piece that you'll see. So those are really the core factors.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of discussion that goes on. We provide a lot of material. We also provide a binder to the MDC that has even more material in it. So I'll go through the material in here that's back up to the information that's embedded in this budget as some examples. So you'll see an appendix for co-curriculars. You'll see an appendix for maintenance. You'll see an appendix for technology. You'll see the high school breakout. I also have in here tax rate history, surplus history. So I give a lot of detail so that you know and can effectively vote on what you'd like to move forward to the NBC.
Got it.
Is the timeline, what you just described, starts in like, say, August and September of 22. We eventually get to the town vote in March of 23, and it goes into effect July 1st of 23. So all of this is in anticipation, looking ahead a year for what we think we're going to need next year, which is so far away right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of what's built into this, is trying to predict what's gonna happen a year from now.
Which, on the town side, the town's budget actually is voted on 3 months after it starts. So the town is operating effectively for 3 months, their budget gets voted on, and then at that point, they know what they have for the next 9 months.
Interesting.
Yeah, ours is more like 14 to 16 months out.
Yeah,
So it's a
so-
very, so when we talk about
Right.
special ed and I say, well, these are the numbers we're anticipating, when we look at special ed numbers, they're based off current students that we currently have that we're providing students to currently. We also have conversations about anybody that, for instance, that might be, if we know somebody that's moving in, or any students that are moving from DCS over to the high school. We talk about whether someone may have services now, do they continuously need them? Those type of conversations. So those are all those types of ideas and conversations happen to arrive at the numbers.
Cool.
All right, so now,
Okay,
let's get after it.
all right,
go.
so line 14. That's our teacher salaries. That was not in the budget before. The other thing we didn't mention, there are budget rosters in here. So the budget rosters align with the salaries. There was not any FTE changes in this line, but there was some staff changes. And the staff changes is what made this look like it's less money. So there were some open positions that were filled. They came in at a lesser salary than we had originally budgeted for because we didn't know they would not be here.
Is this also not including the CBA?
It is not including the CBA. That's the other thing we should mention. Anything that is on a warrant article does not get added to the budget until after it is voted. Okay, so what you're seeing in here is strictly operating budget. So if we have, let's say rewind to when we're gonna vote for the high school. The high school increase isn't gonna happen until that year. If a CBA is happening this year, which it is, that would not get voted, not added to the budget till March. Okay? So these salaries are as is what we're currently paying. All right, so on line 20, those are our paraprofessionals. Those are for regular education. Those serve as regular education students. That again was just a staff change in that line.
Is that, are we down pairs or is it just?
We're not
staff
down, we
change?
just did staff change.
It is.
Yep, same amount of FTEs.
So as we, for when we bring this to the NBC,
Mhm.
if we, I know we have rosters and everything, but we always know there's the same set of questions we get from the NBC every year.
Mhm.
Certified staff, paras, if we can also embed that information from the rosters into these lines, is that possible?
I'm not, what are you
So-
asking?
so
You're
I have
I have to
asking-
say, like, we had 40
So,
pairs
we- yeah,
last
so
year, we have
we're-
40 pairs proposed.
Right, so we
Okay.
always get those questions, like how many,
I do that
how
in
many
the special
full-time
ed.
teachers? It's, right, so how many full-time teachers do we have? Say
Sure.
it's 42. we know we have it on the roster, but what ends up happening is we're either in the deliberative session or at the NBC, the question gets asked, and then I'm flipping through the word counting out
Yeah, so
Right.
how many FTEs per,
per
yes.
any of those staffing lines.
Sure,
And
I
if
can do
it's-
that.
If it's plus or minus, so if it's 40 plus one or
Yeah,
40
I would
minus
just
one.
put maybe just the delta in, like what's the change? Is it +1, -1? Is
They
it-
always ask us the exact number. They do.
Right, so
I think,
objectively, obviously, if we can answer the question before it's asked.
yeah, so what I do for, we'll see when you get down to the special ed paras, I say in FY 22-23, we had 24 paras. We're proposing 24 paras. I could do the same, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I hate to add words,
No,
but
that's not,
maybe,
that's,
it's maybe work.
I have
added
the
here.
information.
It's work added here that might say work later.
Sure.
All right, sorry about that.
Nope, you're good. All right, line 21, which is Title I tutor. This position is split 50-50 between in this line, and then it's going to show up again in a grant line. So it's paid half by a grant, half by the operating budget. Line 28, that is contracted services. This is services that the SAU provides that service students for English language learners. So you are only billed out for the usage for your individual school. So we hire the employees over at the SAU, and then we say, okay, you have one student, we're gonna bill you for one student. This school has 3 students, we're gonna bill for 3 students. So it's based off of the usage. High school tuition, you're gonna notice that there is change here. Couple drivers. One is we're estimating less students. Currently, we have 194 students that we had budgeted for. We are estimating 176 students next year. That's a big change, so I did some investigating on why that might be. Some of these students are going to Founders Academy, and there are VLACs. So the VLACs program and the Founders Academy, both of those 2 areas have increased over the previous year.
We still is VLAX not in this line because we don't pay for VLAX?
So it's a charter school, so it's public. That's all the charters.
But it must be funded from, not the town that it's in, it must be funded from the state.
To be honest, I don't know anything about VLACs, so I don't feel comfortable.
Comes from the youth.
I just know that students are going there.
So, we still estimating about 194 students.
No, we are estimating 176 students.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But we have more than 176 high school students.
No, we have 176 high school students. They aren't necessarily all going to Concord.
Right.
Okay, so I broke it down here. We have 6 students that go to Co-Brown, 7 students that go to Co-Brown. We are 169 students going to Concord. So that's where those.
So I guess what my question is we know we have students that are at VLAX or Founders.
Correct.
We know how many.
I do have that information. I want to say it was 8 at VLAX and maybe 6 at Founders,
So the reason why I asked that
somewhere around there.
question is those students at any point can choose to re-enroll into the
Absolutely, yep.
which could have a fairly significant impact.
Mm-hmm.
14 students at 14K a year is close to 200 grand.
Yeah, I only will ever put in when I present it to you exactly
Right.
what is,
No.
should the board choose to change.
It's for me, it's a really set for further discussion.
And so Co-Brown's, I do want to note that the Co-Brown tuition rate is increasing. It's going up to 19,000 to 18. And Concord High School is increasing slightly, but it's going to be 15,382.
And that is regardless of the proposed contract, because the proposed contract would be starting the following year.
That's
So
correct,
this is part of the current contract.
correct.
Do you know whether the change in students that we see here, those 14 you were just talking about, would also or was connected to a decrease in adequacy aid that we got from the state or are expecting from the state?
I mean, well, I would guess that their number must be calculated in there, but what I will say is, well, I do have estimated revenue in here, and the adequacy aid number did go down, but your state tax went up, so the drop isn't significant.
It's not realized. Okay, all right. Sorry, we're asking.
No, ask away. No, this is the time to ask.
The appropriate line.
For what, those 14
Yeah.
heads, I think it's potentially a board level discussion that we can't have, which is, should we insert?
Yeah, and some other schools do that, do that.
We know there's potential students, it could have a potential impact.
Right.
What dollars in there for that potential cost. We don't have, one consideration for this board is because of the wording of the $1 million warrant article last year, we don't have retainage that we've always kept, at least during my duration on the board. So because that warrant article was funded with surplus, it consumed the surplus, which consumed the dollars that could have been used for retainage. So we don't, right, we didn't act on retainage this year because there's no retainage to act on because the town told us to take all of it and then raise the difference.
So then skip around in this conversation because we should.
We may want to, it's a place for us to have a discussion.
Or at least whether you put it in a warrant article,
Yeah.
a trust fund or something, yeah.
Potentially.
Are we able to determine how long these 14 students, is this their first venture into Founders and VLAX? Like longevity would be a factor in determining whether or not they're going to return.
I can pull a few years back. I looked at last year's and this year's. And actually this year was a little more than last year, which I didn't expect. I actually expected the opposite. But it was not just high school, it was elementary students too.
Yeah, I think the question is because when we go to look at whether we want to carry that potential liability,
Some of it.
yeah, the knowledge of whether or not this is put your foot in the water and decide you don't like it, jump back, or they've tried it, experienced it, and are likely to stay.
It's an impossible question to answer, but I'm just.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, I
making,
can get you some information.
I'm making circle back notes.
I want to make sure you're making an effective decision. So let me get you some data.
Wouldn't, if we did choose to do that, that wouldn't affect our lack of retainage for this year, because this wouldn't actually be available until next July.
No,
right?
as far as the retainage side of it, my statement regarding retainage is we've always had a couple of trust funds for like a special education trust fund for the trust funds. We've also had, so in the event that 15 or 14 high school students show back up, you have a couple special education cases aren't anticipated suddenly. We always try to find a surplus, but that's subject to 1 or 2 cases move into town. Suddenly, these 14 kids or 8 of these students decide they want to attend public high school again. And suddenly we've blown a hole in the budget. We don't have that retainage.
But the retainage question is this year.
Retainage,
I think was
Your
saying we don't have
question is,
to.
the retainage is not going to affect this budget. It's only going to
Right.
affect the
The
current
following
year.
Right.
The
that's
current
my
year.
point.
So we have no retainage from 21, 22 that came into 22, 23.
Right.
But anything that
Presumably,
if
next year,
you may have
it
some,
will.
but we also don't have that money to roll over like we have. We've been rolling that money over.
Yeah.
well, it just hasn't made any difference because it's been basically netting out.
Yeah. We
Is
don't-
really what was happening.
Yeah, so we don't have that, it's not there. If we don't have a $200,000 surplus, we don't have the money to retain, because we don't have the money to roll back in and roll back out. All we've done for the last 7 years is take it out of this pocket, put it back in this pocket.
Right.
But we've had it in the pocket.
And it's not even real money, but it is, but it isn't. It's all appropriation. Okay, next page, page 4. Page 4, let's see here, line 47 and 53, both of those lines changed because there was a change on the technology backup. So Principal Liddy asked me to make those changes, so I did.
And then, so we should see the reflections that we talked about, those are the subscriptions, we moved everything into one line, that's what.
Almost everything.
All right, so we'll see the reflections elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
You sure will. Okay, let's see here, and then if you see anything that's like, it's color-coded red font, I need to go back and look at it. I ran out of time, but I wanted to remember to go back, so I color-coded it in red, so you can just ignore that. All right, on page 5, line 84, we had a change in language arts. Again, Principal Withy had asked me to make a change there, as well as at line 100.
Line 84, we moved the language arts technology subscriptions into the technology line, including the amount of money that was put aside for those, which came to about $2,800 or something like that. We moved up into that line. And then the computer repair parts is closer to 10,000 than 8,000.
Right, we had 8 before, yeah.
Can we go back to line 53 just for a second? So you're saying that 3,000-ish came from line 84, and the other 20,000 came from where? Line 50, that maybe
At
was last.
the last meeting, there was like 4 different technology subscription line items, so we asked them to consolidate them all into one technology line item.
So we did some housekeeping.
Okay, so each was not a significant increase, but compiled, but in this line, there's a big increase because they were all added to.
Correct. You'll
So
see,
our subscriptions added up to basically that amount, but it was scattered through, it was 4 lines we had. And
Departmental.
yeah, and there's no need for them to be a subscription, right? Yeah, for this technology. So we asked to code them all into one line. So yes, it looks drastic there.
but there's decreases in other lines.
It's offset elsewhere.
Like for instance, line 103.
Yeah,
Or even in 84, there's a reduction in that line.
Sorry, I forgot you weren't here.
that's okay.
All right,
All right, page 6.
you were. It's not the same.
All right, page 6, there's a lot going on here. This is all of the special ed program. So I've added in the salaries for these positions, as well as I made some changes to the special ed as well, because I received some new numbers. So on 126, there's a slight change in that. Again, that's personnel. There's no FTE change. Line 28, again, that was a personnel change. Line 129, we are proposing 24 paras, the same as the current year. The change there again is change in personnel, and we also have 2 openings, I think it was. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, budgeting.
I think we have 2 openings, so that obviously budgeted less than what we currently have on our list. So those are the changes for that.
So I'm sorry for the
Yep, go ahead.
para, the vacancies, that's what's the increase there?
No, 2 paras were added.
2 paras were added, so they're vacant, and they're
So
vacant.
24 will be 20,
3?
we need 30 altogether, Lisa, right? But 6 of them are regular ed.
Right, we need 24 special education paras and 5 regular ed.
And 1 library. Mhm.
Library line anticipated for 23-24.
Sorry, Amber.
Let's see, our summer services, that's the special ed that we receive from Karen. That covers services for special ed students over the summer. The special ed coordinator position on line 133, that wasn't in here before, so I have added that salary line. Line 137, which is centralized admin services, that's again is special ed services. And that number wasn't in here, so I've added that number in. Special ed training wasn't included the last round, so I've added some dollars there. That's line 139. The one that changed pretty significantly, actually before I get there, I added in the contracted service line, which is 141. You will notice that that's gone down a little bit. Again, that's, as we've always said, it's based on the services provided to students. There are a large amount of students in the high school that are graduating. So that is one of the reasons why some of these numbers are gonna look a little lower. But with that said,
It's okay to go down.
I understand that, but I would like to put a little asterisk beside this because it is still only November. And so because of that, there are students still being evaluated. And so these numbers could potentially change before we get a final budget. Okay, I met with Karen this morning. And so we may see a change between now and when we vote, we may not.
So I'm assuming I'm looking at line 149.
Correct, 149.
Same story applies.
Correct, that is actually one of the biggest places where there were 12th graders. I think the last time you saw it, the number that was there was like 500 and something. And so I met with her this morning and asked if she had any more updated numbers, and she had received some bills in. And so she went through those, and this was the number she was able to provide me with as of today. But again, that number may change. I know it's a pretty,
Substantial
yeah,
savings.
exactly. And let's hope we keep it, but I do not want to make you false promises.
But you put it in print.
I put it in print, but it's also in yellow. Can change.
It's in there. You can change.
All right, on page 7, line 163, that is a change that also Principal Olivia asked me to modify. Again, that was a change made off of the technology sheet. Line 185, that's your guidance salaries. Again, the salaries were not included in the last round, so I've included that.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yep, it's on 185, guidance salaries. It's at the very, very, very bottom,
Yeah.
very last line. Let's see here, line 186, which is your diagnostics. You did not have this last year, but some of the services have been provided, are changing. The reason is that before we used to outsource this service. Now we have hired someone in-house to provide the service. So while some of the lines on the other ones have decreased, it's because some of the expenses is now showing up in this one piece. So we've just shifted the expense.
This is in the building or this is in the SAU? This is the portion that the SAU is providing to us.
Correct. So this is part of our SAU fund budget, and we bill out per usage for the students. So however many days your speech pathology or OT or whatever it may be that comes is billed to this line.
Is this a savings over when it was contracted?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, for sure.
So a note would be, where's the offset in the contracted service line?
Yes.
And then, if we can reference a line number, so offset. And whatever line that would be, which,
141, right?
is that 141?
Yeah, 141 dropped to 134.
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
so offset with line 141. So if we can note that in there,
Sure.
again, it just saves hunting around trying to find it with where
No, absolutely.
addressing it.
Yep.
In the near future. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's see here. The assessment line, 188, there wasn't a figure in there. I've added some dollars for that. Line 193, nurse's salary. I've added the nurse's salary in there and included 10 additional days. You will notice that column X does not match column Z. The reason why is because the 10 extra days would not make it into the default, should a default occur. Okay, so that's the difference between the 10 days. We have proposed this every year. This isn't anything new. It just, we keep ending in default, so we keep losing it. So I just wanted to note it's not really something new we're asking for. On line 214, staff reimbursement. This is a line that depending on, I have not read the new CBA. If there is a modification to the CBA in regards to course reimbursement, a change would occur after the budget is built. As of now, it stands. It is what is currently in the CBA until any such change would be made.
Can
So
we
that-
just, sorry, go ahead.
Yep, so that's line 214 and 218.
I thought we had talked about under the health line, the equipment for testing, if I remember correctly, was close to its end life, right? We talked about.
It is potentially, but it has not, it's still, every year she gets it tested and the guy said, who knows when this could go. Do you want me to add that in there?
I personally think we should, rather than wait till.
All right, so, let's just ask, right?
What piece of equipment is that?
So it's the hearing,
The odometer?
yeah,
Odometer?
it's like $2,800. It's a pretty expensive piece of equipment, but it got a lot of use over the past couple of weeks with our screenings.
Is that is that an item if we needed to replace, can we pull that out of the trusts? Or does that not qualify?
Did I put your trust fund?
The smaller trust,
I had your trust funds, did I have it? Yeah, maybe I already gave them to you, and that's why I didn't do it.
we can,
I didn't add them in this one. I have to look to see how your equipment trust is, how it was established. So whether it was a building equipment, if it's building equipment, it depends.
so what I think I'd like to do with this, guys, is I want to kind of keep denoting where we want to circle back to certain things, if that's okay. If there's stuff that any of the other board members want to circle back to, and then we can, hopefully, we'll hit the circle back here after we finish. And then if there's adjustments we want to discuss, make or follow up with at the next meeting, we can certainly tackle that. Fair enough?
Jeff, you got that one?
I got that.
I got a mark for a circle back. All right.
Me too. All right, page 9, line 225 and 226, that's your library staff. Again, staff members weren't added before, they have now been added. Line 246 and 248, those are part of your collective bargaining agreement, as I mentioned a little earlier. So those would not change unless there is a change in the CBA. Page 10, line 271 and 273, so the auditors, that's the fee for the auditing firm, and then attorney fees. I put 10,000 in there to attorney fees because that's what we've been doing. I really don't like ever saying that if I did something because that's what we've been doing.
There's a circle back.
But I thought I'm gonna put this as we had it, and it can be a board discussion because we have expended much greater than that. Last year we had 34,000. So I thought that might be something the board might want to discuss, whether they want to increase that or not.
I think we're probably on that one, gonna want to look at a little bit of history on the expenditures on that line to see if that was a fluke to anything in particular.
I
feel
don't
like-
think it was a fluke. I think we had a couple years before, it was also,
I feel like it's always 30, 40 grand.
I would say the last several years, if I can remember correctly, and I could be mixing it with another district, it's very possible, that we've had it much higher than what we budgeted, but I can pull a 5-year history for you if you want.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, I feel like in previous years we tried to do this, but the fall,
Keep
we
getting
don't
it
get
out
that
back.
because of the fall.
Oh,
So I think we did.
That
this
is
last
correct.
year.
We might have actually increased it last year. I think we did,
We didn't get it.
and we didn't get it. So that's a very valid point. So even the history may not, I'll only look at
It'll be just the history of the
just the
expenditure.
actual
It's
expenditure.
just the expenditure that
Yeah.
matters. So that's on the circle back list.
Okay.
Fair enough? All right.
Alrighty, let's see here, lines 284 to 285. I've added in the salaries there. Line 284, principal salary, that is a multi-year contract. So that is the salary as is. Line 285 is up for renewal. So that'll be a conversation for non-public. Sorry, that's okay.
Thought the camera was.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
It's the second time this is talking was.
I figured out how to get everybody to mute, so.
All right, page 11, I'm on page 11 stuff. At the very bottom, did I skip a lot? Let me go back to the top. I skipped the whole page. Page 11, line 292, that is your secretary salaries. There's a big change there, and the reason for that being is there was longevity that was budgeted on the roster, but what actually happened in this position is actually should have been in a retirement line.
Okay.
That's where that change is. Okay,
that
so we're
would
not
be-
reducing staff, the salary hasn't
It's
changed.
just,
It's because longevity was budgeted there and really it was part of like an annuity which goes down lower.
But does it belong to different line?
It belongs in the 2,900 line.
okay.
All right, on line 295, is an, I should actually, this line, it says includes OT hours. That is not true. If you, I think I need to speak with Kristen about this, Principal Withy about this. Right now, that is what the contract, what their contracted rate is. If you would like to add additional hours, we would need to do that. Okay, I just noticed my note, but I know when I looked at the roster, there wasn't extra hours on there. And it's probably because that keeps dropping off every year too.
When the position switched from a management position to, it was supposed to be built in for,
And maybe it is, and we just need to lose the note.
no.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
let's do it. Mhm.
Okay, line 297, that's course reimbursement, that is contractual. Line 305, that is communications line, wasn't in there before, it has been added now, that is your internet, and that is based on your monthly rate. Line 308, which is travel conferences, again, that's contractual. And we're gonna jump down to line 323, which is custodial salaries. There's a substantial decrease in that line, and that is strictly because there's been some personnel changes. There's no loss of FTEs there. Maybe slightly, instead of being like 5, 5.6, it might be 5, but there's really been no added or no reductions there. Line 325, custodian mileage, that's been added, that was not in there before. The module rental has been added, but I know there might be more discussion in regards to that. I'm sorry, what was that?
Already got an asterisk.
Okay, let me put a little asterisk there as well. I know there's been some discussion on what you would like to do with those. As of now, that is just what the monthly rate, they've been quoting us, and they really have been keeping the same rate for the last, I've been here almost 8 years, and it's been this, I think the same rate this entire
Hard
time.
pressed to convince me.
Well, actually, they
We could
tried,
bond.
they actually tried, and I came back and said, we are not paying more for the contractors. And they said, you have been with us a really long time, and I said, yes, we have. And they said, okay.
Biggest mistake we ever made, we should have bought them in the first place.
Yeah, once you put a module on your land, it's very difficult to get rid of it.
Well, I can make it go away.
All right, let's see here, line 328. The telephone line went down, that's based off your monthly rate. I may have to go back and look at that, but I did pull invoices when I went through these.
Yeah, something's missing there, because our actual on that from last
Yeah,
year was much higher.
yeah, but I'm wondering if it, but let me go up to your communication line. The reason why it's higher is because when the bills came in, someone didn't break out the internet and phone connection.
I don't pay those.
I didn't say it was you, I said someone.
Hold my head up like a prairie dog.
I don't ever throw anyone under the bus. I'm just gonna say
All
when
right.
it was
So this, so the
Actually,
change
Bill-
in this line is an offset, right?
correct, the offset is on line 305.
So what we really want to do is we want to circle back to 305.
See how it is 0? You definitely paid for internet
Okay,
service.
so this is offset by line
Just for
328.
actual, yes, just for the actual.
320. I
Yeah.
just want to get a note stuffed in there when we do it.
Yes, because they may question.
Well, it's easier to answer the question for us.
So usually I tend to try to, when I'm closing year end, I try to catch things like that and do a journal entry to move it to the appropriate line, but
Yep.
all honesty, life's, not life, but work has been insane and
Stuff.
I did not catch that one.
That's okay. All right, electric and propane.
All right, let's see here, electric and propane, those are based again on bills, but I also put some in for electric in particular, some inflation in there because electric rates are rising. Propane is based off of the current rate right now, on 2,000 gallons, so there's a slight increase there. Oil, again, based off of $2.34 off of 13,000 gallons, which is basically what we've been using.
I just want to buy my oil for $2.
Yeah.
Get some of that.
Gotta lock it in. All right, so 341, which is liability insurance, I am anticipating that to go down. This year, we are seeing some of those rates decrease. We also, in some of the other areas of like workers' comp and things like that, life insurance and long-term disability, some of those rates for some of our districts, not all, have gone down. This happens to be an area where I think is gonna go down for you guys. That is your property liability, just so you know what that is. So any property that you have, that's the insurance that you have, that you carry. High school transportation, your favorite conversation.
344.
Yep, no, 353
We rode that horse last time.
Oh, there we are here. Okay, great. That's fine.
and 355, that is your regular ed transportation. So right now, I'm carrying it as if potentially you're going to extend the contract another year. I'm not sure what your plan is to do. So with that said, I think I put either 7%, 10% increase in there. I carried the exact amount of buses we currently have.
Currently wish we had. Yeah.
Currently budgeted for
Aren't you an
into next year.
optimist? All right.
Yes, you gotta be, right?
So that's an annual topic of discussion. I'm just gonna
Yep.
asterisk, but I don't think there's any way to go with it.
So, my new saying tends to be, it is what it is.
Line 358,
Yep, 357 and 358, that is your special ed transportation.
significant change in there.
Significantly changed there, yes. We have some students that require some significant transportation. One of the big changes, it's driving this, is not necessarily where there are some added students, the rate that is being charged for the transportation for these students is,
Can we shop that or are we?
there's not a lot of transportation out there, but what I will say is the range is like around $600 a day for some students. And we were looking at some bills earlier today, and that's an actual rate that I saw. So it's not necessarily the larger driver, the amount of students, but the cost is just, there's not, for instance, I'll just use our current transportation company, for some of our district isn't able to even provide the small bus anymore. So because they can't provide the small bus, we're having to go to these smaller companies that can provide transportation, but the cost is rising. So that is one of the reasons. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, they really have districts over the barrel because
They
we
really-
have to provide the transportation, and so we have to shop around and.
And we definitely shop around.
And there's all these pop-up transportation companies now. I think they see that this
Is it,
is pretty lucrative.
Yes.
We're paying-
Buy a couple of vans and.
we're paying more for a van to haul
Yes.
one or two
Correct.
districts than we pay for a bus that hauls 77.
We are all in the wrong business.
Well, I'm starting to think I'm missing out on an opportunity here.
That's what I mean.
Fire
I'm
up
the
the
wrong business.
minivan.
Jeff, you want to buy a couple vans tomorrow?
I'll drive it for you. All right, let's see here, page 13. All right, so let's talk about page 13. These are your fringe benefits. Line 366 is your health insurance. Health insurance, this is the actual increase. I did receive it, actually a few days earlier than I usually do. It's increasing by 8.6. What I will tell you is what I received SAU-wide, one district received like 2.4. Everybody else received 7.8 or above. And that's based off of usage. Each district is different because of their usage of their plans. And whatever ailments may be happening in your district drives this.
So you look at an employee census to determine our health insurance rates.
Yeah, they do a huge analysis. They actually sat down with us a couple of years ago and showed us this analysis that they did. It's very, very extensive, like many pages.
I remember asking this question, I think when we did the SAU budget last year, but when's the last time we shopped our health insurance?
Last year and the year before.
Okay.
And actually, one of the other larger insurance firms wouldn't even provide us with a quote because they knew that they could not come anywhere close to what we were getting. And then one of the smaller ones, I don't believe that they could match the plans we have. So what we're butting up against is we have to offer the plans that are part of our CBA. So we absolutely do check, especially when stuff like this comes through. You know, every year it seems to be going up and up. I will say Deerfield typically is on the higher end of that. Since I've been here all these years, I would say Deerfield has typically been one of the highest for increases.
And we also have plan changes.
Correct. So that's not just strictly rate increases. You have personnel changes and you have plan changes. So that is, you know, it's going up 121, but we've had a lot of change in personnel.
Plans picking out.
You may have had, yeah, you may have had a single or two-person plan and then they just had a baby and now you have a family plan. So those kind of changes happen. It can go the opposite. You could have a married couple and now one baby become divorced and now they go to a single plan. So those are the kind of changes you would see in that line. Okay, I have some good news coming. Dental insurance increased 1.5%. That's pretty typical. Some years we get flat. I think last year was 3%, so this is less.
Hey, the next line's positive.
Yes, this is my positivity coming.
This is your positivity.
Yes.
Thank you, state of New Hampshire.
So the ones that follow right under dental is your life, disability, and FICA. That's all based off of your rosters. Retirement. So there is a retirement change coming next year. What we've seen in the past is we've seen that rate go up. We're going to actually see the rate go down for non-certified staff. Currently, it is 14.06. It's going down to 13.94.
That's for non-certified?
For non-certified. For certified staff,
Your description's the same there for both.
nope. What do you mean? Oh, it's for certified and so, okay, sorry.
Yep, sorry.
I'll put a non in there.
Yep.
So I take back the note.
Ooh, gotcha.
I thought you meant the rate. So certified staff they were 21.02 and they're going down to 19.34. That is the rate we receive for the New Hampshire retirement system.
It's the first time I've seen it go down in my tenure.
I have not seen it go down. I actually had to reread the email a few times to make sure I was reading it correctly because I was surprised.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll take the surprise. All right, so some of the change there is the rate decrease. Some of the change there is your personnel change. So it's not like you can take your roster from last year and multiply it. You have to take into consideration personnel changes. Underneath that, you have your annuities and unemployment and workers' compensation. So those have been added. Lines 390 through 393, we always put $1 in there just in case you end up using those from a trust fund or whatever might happen, or at the end of the year for surplus dollars. All right, another big change. Page 14, food service, 398. The reason why you have a big change here is because when Deerfield and actually all of the districts for SAU this fiscal year, which is a first, ended in a surplus. The reason why we ended in a surplus is because we received funding from the federal government and the state. And the funding that we received was greater than the expenses that we had. So because of that, I do have the food service budget in here. It's on page 39. The amount of the surplus is $103,000. So what I've done is your budget, I've allocated some dollars in the operating budget to cover unpaid lunch balances because any food service surplus are not allowed to cover that expense per deal. That's part of the regulation. So any unpaid lunches have to get paid by your operating budget. With that said, the food service budget did need to be offset by a larger amount. So what I've decided to do, and you can certainly change this, but what I'm recommending is that we use about $32,000 to offset the budget to net it to zero. So we're going to use some $32,000 from the surplus to offset this
Food
budget.
service surplus.
Correct,
To offset,
correct.
and then the balance of the food service surplus.
Stays. So the difference between operating and food services, if you have a surplus in food service, that will continue to roll until you utilize it. It does not go back to offset
So
taxes.
perceivably, there's another year or two. where we're gonna be
Correct.
surplus circumstances.
Correct. Maybe we need to use it this year. I mean, I don't, we have to see what happens this year. Whether it happens this year or next year or the following year, I didn't want to deplete it. Okay, I wanted to keep something in there in case we don't have a surplus this year, and then maybe 2 years from now, we need to offset it again. So I was hoping to keep some in there in case of that, or what if we had a piece of equipment fail? Then we've got somewhere to pull from, because we don't have a trust fund for that.
Everybody
Makes sense?
following along with that?
So that was my thought process there. So while there is a savings in that line, it's because we're utilizing food service surplus. And let's see here. The next line's on 417 and 419. 417, that's what we are anticipating for grants for next year. It is a little bit lower. That could go up or down. Really, it's too early to even know what we're going to be receiving for grants. So we have to base it off of what we currently are getting, and then some that I know are ending. Let's see here. And then the food service is the budget we just talked about. So the total food service budget is $179,320. So I know your bottom line looks like only a $75,000 decrease. The reason for that being is when I did that on.
Oh, that's okay. It's a it's down.
I know, but I need to point this out because it's important. So really the decrease, if you were calculating the line, if you were to take your current and you subtracted your proposed, it's really $1,075,898. I took it out because it makes it look like your budget has decreased by 6.61%, when in reality, your budget has decreased, your actual decrease is 0.47 decrease. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, so, and that's because of the $1 million.
And that's
warrant
because of the
article.
$1 million warrant article.
So last year's budget would have been, last year's default should have been 15,274.38. We added the $1 million in from the warrant article, 15,274.38. Anybody watching or listening, the current proposed budget is, where are we? 15,194,540. So it is a decrease from the 15,274.38. And obviously, if you add the $1 million in from that warrant article, it's a significant decrease. But we're down.
We're down, you're right.
It's great.
So what in the next budget, I'll show it exactly as it should be, but I wanted you to see it so that you weren't,
You mean as it should be with the million?
yes, because that's really what should be there.
Right.
But I didn't want you to think, oh my, our budget went down $1 million. It didn't go down $1 million. It went down $1 million because of your warrant articles. No, warrant articles don't get added until after they've been voted on.
Is that, if this goes through, is that the number that's gonna be on the warrant? If we don't make any changes, if the NBC doesn't make any changes.
The number that will go on the budget will, on the warrant will be the 15,194,000.
But it'll show a decrease of 6%.
Technically, yeah. Because that's true. That's how much you're appropriating.
So
You're not appropriating $1 million anymore.
We're appropriated default budget plus $1 million. So that's DRA's calculation.
Correct.
So.
And also, we recognize that this is separate from the CDA, so really, once that goes in, if it gets approved, that will.
Right, so the other things that are not in here, your retirements are not in here. And any increases that are not, multi-year contracts are not in here. Your CBA increases are not in here. So those things still need to be added. So
But
this
they're not
is,
gonna be added before the vote in March.
well, the only thing that will be added, well, two things that will be added before March is your retirements and your non-certified staff and your certified staff for admins.
So questions for you, Principal Liddy. Do we have any known retirements yet?
I haven't heard of any yet.
Any scuttlebutt of potential retirements yet? Okay. what's our contractually, is it
I
December?
think it's December 1st.
December 1st or December 15th?
November 15th. Some districts are like November 15th, some are December 1st, so
So that's, from a 30,000 foot standpoint, the things that impact the budget annually, obviously transportation, we talk about bus number 8 every year. Talking about bus number 8 is a waste of time because it can't get us buses 6 and 7, so there's no reason for us to talk about number 8 at this point. My own opinion. If we have any retirements coming in, that's typically a teacher at a top step that we would be theoretically, we budget for step 5 plus master still. So that would be an exchange where we're hiring one teacher and bringing in somebody in the middle of the scale, budgeting for the middle of the scale. So that is typically potential savings,
yep, some offset.
some offset. That being said, we also budget for family plans. For
Correct.
health insurance, right? But if we don't have any known at the moment, then, there may not be anything there.
Right, and you do have some open positions. Any open positions, I also budget as a family plan because we need to budget for highest risk.
And masters plus, I'm sorry, step 5, masters, step 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, yep,
That was not coming out right.
yep, I understood what you were saying.
Okay, so is there questions or do we want to circle back to the asterisks? How do you guys want to play this?
Let's circle back to the asterisks.
Okay, so if we go back to the beginning. So that's no offset.
Yep.
So I guess the first asterisk is going to pertain to those high school students. So do we want to explore adding dollars for the potential return of students that we know are in district? Or do we want to explore that with a warrant article, or do we want to leave it alone?
So I guess the question is, you said you did a little digging to see why that number dropped. That dropped 22, 23. So they pulled out of public high school from 2021.
Yeah, that's not the only change. The other change was if I, actually, let me look at I have it in here. The high school tuition breakdown, before I misspeak, because I have 5 districts that all. So,
Should have been notified.
one of the big changes was the amount of students that were 12th graders last year, I think was 52, if I can remember correctly. And now there's 39 12th graders. So when we started to come through the pike, your amount of 10th graders are 28. So that's a big change there.
It's a small class.
It's a very small class. I actually had to double check that. So that 10th grade pod, or whatever you want to grade that you want to call them, is less than what we had in the past. So that also drives that number down. So it's not just that students are going somewhere else. Well, they are going somewhere else, I suppose, but they're not just going to VLAX or wherever that tends to be happening in that pod that's coming through the pike. It's a smaller class size.
It's a relatively large class going in next year,
55.
55. What page are you on?
I'm on page 41.
Do we know, are you able to tell us what 2022, 23 looks like right now?
I didn't bring the BOI with me.
I'm just curious, I guess, how many are dropping off at the end of?
I think it was 52. I
So
could be wrong, but I think it might be 52, but I'll
So
double check.
right now, presumably, we have 52 seniors, so we're dropping 11.
Currently, right now, this year, we have
This year it's
52
52
seniors.
seniors, but we're putting 52-ish back in.
Well, 55 are coming in for
So I
ninth
guess
grade.
that's what I think Jeff
But-
was trying to reconcile is, it sounds like if we have 52 going on, 55 going in, we should be plus 3.
Right, but then you're also the 10th grade class is a low number.
Yeah, but that's.
And I think there must
But
have
the
been a
10th grade
change there
class is the
too.
11th grade class next year.
Yeah, it's gonna keep going through the pipe, so then you'll lose 47.
I guess the question I'd have before I wanted to put another 200,000 in that line item is what is our total high school enrollment in 22, 23?
I don't have that with me.
That's fine, can do that for next.
Yep.
What do you mean by our total?
So
He wants to know where
next
you're at.
year, we'll have 176 high school students. How many high school students we have this year? To try and understand why we're dropping.
We budgeted 194 for this year.
Yeah.
For 22, 23, we had 194 budget.
And is that what we're paying? Question.
So that's the budgeted amount. So what you want to see is the actual.
Yeah, I'll get you the BOI, which is our beginning of the year enrollment.
Yeah, so
I'll get that for
I think
you.
we're just guessing if we.
No, so that's a circle back.
Yeah.
I'll have it put in the drive.
Okay. Additional questions on that? Okay, next up.
I had that, to be honest, I had it on my desk. I didn't grab it. I
No worries.
apologize.
You don't have to apologize. Next up would be the audio meter. Plugging in number for approximately 2,800, I believe, is what the cost said. This is one of those, well done. One of your notes, at least. So right now, that's been recalibrated. It works. It's functioning. But we know it has a limited lifespan.
I think we should put that as a warrant article. Or-
$2,800.
Well, if we try to put it in the budget, right, I think with the town is, my point.
So if you put it on a warrant article and it fails, you just don't buy an audio meter.
Well, you can't, well, this is the thing. If you put it in a warrant article and it fails, and then the equipment fails, you cannot purchase it.
I guess my point is
wouldn't
that
put it
the
in
town
one
has shown that they're willing to support things that are definitively needed at the school. And if we put in the budget,
I
but
wanna
we can
see-
find the
You risk
money.
not being able to buy one though.
So for me, I'd want to circle back. This is one of those items that I want to see in May. If we have a couple extra bucks.
Yeah, because
That's how I wanna
if it
see
goes
it.
in a warrant article and fails, you can't actually use any dollars to buy it,
Keep your
regardless of
logic.
what fund.
I just know this town treats budgets.
All right.
I just don't want to see you lose your piece of machinery.
How this town treats budgets. It's not working. All right, so for me, I'd want to flag that for May. If we can
That's what I would do.
put that on the list of May items. Okay, we have attorneys. That is an item I think we need to increase. I think we've done that annually.
Yeah,
So I would say the question that we have is if we can see the actuals for the last 5 years at the next meeting, I think we should address that appropriately.
That's 273,
That is line 272.
and that has nothing to do with the auditor stuff. That's just
No,
separate.
no, it's separate.
That's just attorneys' fees.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Talk about this.
So if we can see a 5-year actual for the next meeting,
For attorneys.
for attorneys, so line 273, 5-year actual.
Last year we proposed 20,000.
When's your next meeting?
We're gonna meet on the 30th for anybody that's interested. We're gonna add an extra meeting in. I believe everybody was available based on what Patty, I believe.
Last year we proposed 20,000.
I got 20,000.
We had 20,000, yeah, I thought it was a lot higher.
You have the actual for the year before on there, if that's last year's budget?
15,900.
And then this past year was 34.
So that's an adjustment we can make if we want to move the bottom line after making an adjustment on that. It's not going to impact any of the budget. So if we can increase it at the next meeting and we attempt to move the bottom line, it's not going to impact any of the other lines.
What do you mean?
So if we bump this to 20 grand, it's just a 10,000 increase in the bottom line. It's not impacting,
Correct.
it's not impacting insurances or anything.
No.
So it's not an increase we need you to plug in.
Yeah, it's not like a salary where it's gonna
Right,
affect
no,
multiple lines.
No,
Yeah.
no, so that's one way to make a decision on it. So if we can see the 5-year spend on that,
Mhm.
we're gonna have a conversation about 285 after,
Yes.
okay? So we'll deal with that after. I have a note for 295, you're gonna talk to Principal Withy about that, if that's a cleanup thing, that should just be a cleanup of the note on 296.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have a conversation about lines 323 as well.
323.
We need to have a conversation about that.
Yep, I have that non-public too.
Thank you. All right, so modulars. What do you guys want to do with the modulars? We want to look at that as a warrant article and let the town decide if they want us to buy them or not.
That's where we left that conversation at nice till.
We all agree with
We
that?
should put it out to the town.
We're here now, do you agree with that?
Yeah. So what he's saying is instead of paying them a yearly rate, just buy them outright. So you don't have the yearly expense.
So what we'll need is a July 1st buy number for the warrant. If you can get that from Shabby?
Yeah,
Shabby,
it's
shabby.
Shabby, but I think they like, it's now box something, but yeah, it's all the same.
I want a number for July 1st. is what I'd like from them. So we can plug it into a warrant article and let the taxpayers decide if it's worth the payout or not.
I think I already have it. And now is the payout just a one-time payout? Like, you're just gonna buy them
We're
July
just going
1st?
on July 1st.
Okay, I
We'll
think I
write a
already
warrant
have it.
article. We had a warrant article to buy them this year. We made a lease payment, how that impacts, it was $240,000. We made a lease payment, if that impacts the buyout or not, I haven't seen that number. But we put it on a warrant article, let everybody decide. You want to continue paying 32 grand a year, or do you want us to just write a check for it and be done with it? We'll stop talking about them, and then they're here until we can get the community behind doing something different.
Sure,
Right.
I'll get that for you.
Okay.
I think I might already have it. They may just need to adjust it.
Okay, so that's gonna be a question that we will give to the taxpayers. They can do what they like with it from there. I'm sure we'll hear about it from the public. Let's see.
So we're talking about how we came back.
We have, and when we present the warrant article, will be the time for us to tap on that. Telephone, we have just what I notes, transportation. So every single year, I think since I've been here, we've talked over electric. Skipped over electric. No,
With the what?
I didn't have enough for electric.
No, I did.
You did, okay, go.
I think we're gonna fall woefully short this year. We should probably bump it up for next year.
So it was,
If we spent 56,000 last year,
Mhm.
are we locked in with a rate or anything like that? Or are we subject to the market rates?
Perception of market.
So my assumption would be that we're gonna overspend that line item this year, next year, assuming things stay on
so
status quo.
you said you added what percentage to that?
7%.
You're at 7. All right, so I guess the question.
Based off of actual, I think that is what I did.
So.
Is Eversource our provider? They
Yes.
doubled their rates, so.
Trish,
Yeah, but they're not like.
it's
typical
co-op or
outsourced.
Eversource that we use, or both?
Yes, both. Yeah.
So,
Can we get info on where we're tracking this year based on what we're seeing use?
so actual.
Well, we haven't had a lot of bills come in this year so far, to be honest. I'll look and see what we paid out, but I was looking at another district this morning and they barely had
Really?
any invoices in there, yeah. We do have one of our
I would
staff
think
members
that's
that does
immediately
it is
one
out,
of
so maybe she's backlogged, I don't know. But there's not much in the system.
So it sounds like we just want data on that line for historic spends and spend here today.
You want what? You may not be able to get all this by the 30th.
Oh, I'm fine.
I have fought for religious things.
But what are your favorite?
Yeah, you are my favorite. Okay, I said it, didn't I? All right, so you want 5-year for that?
I don't want
I'm sorry,
5 years.
5 years.
I don't care about historic, it's the.
Year to date. Really, you just want to look at year to date.
Okay, and then I'll look at, what I'll do is I'll pull the invoices that have come in and seeing what rates, and whether they're fluctuating.
Everybody okay with that? All right, transportation. So our contract on the high school allows for 3 buses with Dale. Our contract was written for 8 buses. Talk about it every year. We want to add the 8th bus back into the budget that they're not going to give to us anyway, so why should we bother budgeting it? Or do we want to leave well enough alone?
I think we should drop the high school buses to the 2 buses, because we know that's what we are going to.
Are actually getting,
Yeah, so why not?
And if we have fewer kids, then maybe we can condense them down to one bus.
All
I
right,
think we should look at our census.
We should at least go down to 2.
go down to 2.
I think that's.
so that would cut approximately, so that is the proposed line for 3 buses in 2.25, so
I think
we're
they're like a little,
75K a piece.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a little less, yeah.
All right, so that's gonna require a motion, Jeff, if you want to reduce it.
I would make a motion that we reduce the high school transportation busing to 2 buses instead of 3. Second.
We have a motion by Jeff, second by Nate. Discussion regarding that. Any? None? All right, all in favor? And I will vote aye. So we'll see that change in the next round, correct?
Yep.
Like that. Next up, we have our elementary buses. So we're budgeting 7 again. I don't necessarily think that's a line to change. I think I'd love to see 7 buses rolling through town again. I don't know if we ever will, but
How many are currently operating now? I can't,
Like
I can't remember.
2.5 and then a donkey horn cart.
Donkey.
It's, what are we at, 5.5 right now? That's what we think?
We have, 4 buses. 4?
Tricia saying 5.
Do we have 5 in the morning? No, it's 4.
It's
That was fine.
Used to be.
It is less than 7.
Del runs in the afternoon, so
Okay.
we lose sight that that's stopping. And snow is coming.
I would propose,
Please don't say
I would make a motion that we reduce transportation contract to 6 buses for elementary.
Go and find yourself a second on that. Anybody?
So, I mean, second for discussion, sure.
So I would say that we're constantly fighting uphill battle with our budget. That will reflect the savings of the budget. That also reflects the reality that we have. We can want the 7th bus all we want, but we're constantly looking for ways to cut the budget. Why carry a phantom bus in there at whatever it's gonna cost us, right?
That's the one behind the donkeys.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to reflect a more realistic budget. Dale can't deliver what we need, so why not do ourselves a service?
I agree that it's presenting what is realistic. But at the end of the day, if we,
If they told us they had a 7th bus, we would take it.
well, but then if, then we run into the, how do we then get I just don't know.
When have we ever been confronted with that situation?
Once upon a time, a long time ago, before I had gray hair, I think we had 7 buses show up here. We may have had 8 one year.
We tried getting 8.
It was before I had gray hair too then.
We both didn't have gray hair around the same time.
So right now, we're
I love it
functioning
now.
off of like 5.
Yep.
Ish.
No, we're not functioning. We're doing what we have to do. This functioning is different than doing what we have to do, right? We're incurring additional expense to make Dale's deficiencies in Dale's inabilities in their contract. We're covering with additional expenses. So I didn't disagree on the high school one, but I think I disagree on the elementary one, because if Dale came to me tomorrow and said, hey, we've got 7 buses, I'd be the happiest to alive in that regard.
You're talking 2 buses that don't exist right now. All I'm saying is, let's remove one of them. If they come up with a mysterious 6th bus next year, great, we've got 6 buses. But why budget for 2 buses we don't have? Let's budget for 1 bus we don't have.
I don't want them to think they don't.
They
They're gonna feel
are
like,
a national company that is not going to look at our budget and say, oh, they only budgeted for 6 buses. What's only given
And
6?
I don't think I could disagree with that.
The motion on the table is to reduce the busing by 1 for elementary from 7 to 6. Because it's going to reduce our budget, make it that much more palatable to voters, and help the overall budget increase.
decrease.
Thank you, decrease.
What happens if we get 7 buses and we only budget for 6?
I mean, if we could spend, if we have the money elsewhere, we can try to spend it. It's just very difficult because you're spending money that you don't know if you have or not the first day of school versus at the end of the year, we can kind of go, okay, we think we have a surplus. Or we have a surplus, you're basically committing to overspending a line on day one, and that's not the type of budgeting that we want to fly with.
And
That
if
makes sense?
I thought that was a reality or concern, I would make the motion, but I think that Dale's shown time and time again, that's not the concern.
All right. You guys want to vote on it? Any other discussion?
Motion to cut it down to 6.
For elementary, yes. Which we've already cut 1 from high school. Or at least that's how we'll look at it on the next week.
And we're running 5.5 right now.
Yes.
And 1 behind the donkey. So, all in favor of reducing the elementary line from 7 to 6?
Aye.
I'm going no.
I was thinking about it.
So, tie motion, motion fails, correct? Yes.
Oh, we've got a meeting on the 30th.
We have a meeting on the 30th.
Stalemate.
We have a stalemate.
We'll have an odd number on the 30th.
And we'll have an odd number.
We'll leave it as
I'll,
is.
I'll think about it.
So you can still on that
You
one.
have time to ponder.
Yeah.
You guys can, whip me however way you like. It might be your first coffee chat.
Okay,
So we're gonna come back to that.
so we'll put that as a comeback in 2 weeks. Health insurance is nothing we're doing with that. Dental is nothing we're doing with that. I asked her to, I think, on my end, just because it was an increase. Okay.
That'd be why. So one of the other things, and you know, we talk about budget and tax rate, I do want to let you know that Deerfield tax rate has been set, and the Deerfield tax rate has decreased by 48 cents from this year, well, last year to this year.
Can we get credit for that?
Sure.
Okay.
It's certainly not my doing.
Is that with the $1 million?
Yes, that is, because the tax rate wasn't affected by million. I mean, it was in an offset way because we didn't turn back any surplus.
Yeah, correct.
But really if you were to take surplus out and we never turned back surplus, really, it was hit by the 200, a little less than $200,000. $140,000.
So there was no,
We didn't give
Correct, so
anything
there-
back to the Board of Selectmen to offset the tax rate.
Correct.
Which is what we historically do. Our surplus goes back, they use it to buy the rate back.
correct. So on that alone, you would expect to see the rate tick up a hair.
So the rate went down, so presumably there was a revenue increase somewhere along the lines from whether it was on our side of the town side.
Well, the revenue would have gone into your warrant. You returned $0 to offset taxes.
Right.
Was there any, not that sick grant, was there anything left over from grant funding that we got from?
Well, great, if we have leftover funding from grants, it goes back to the government, the state or the government, whatever grant type it's from. It does not become a surplus item for the district.
So, quick question for you.
What page you on, Jeff?
So I'm hopping between 14 and 45.
14, what?
Page 14.
Oh,
and page
14,
45.
literally 14, 45, okay. Page 14,
So our default in 21,
14 and 45.
just talk to me, because I just want to understand these numbers. So I see our 21-22 default was 15,018,000. Our actual was 14,649,000, so a difference
You have to take revenue into consideration too.
where would that be shown as the offset? Revenue from, would
Your
that include the ESSER grants and everything like?
No, it does not include ESSER grants at all. It would include other grants, but you don't get money back from grants. It's just strictly like your catastrophic aid. If you receive more in that, if you receive more Medicaid than anticipated.
Page
Yeah.
43 is the revenue.
So, yeah, and so like the first column, so there were, although it doesn't show you it doesn't show you the difference of what we budgeted. So I will say that we received, I believe, more catastrophic aid than anticipated. Medicaid, we definitely received more than we anticipated. That had been low for quite some time. Child nutrition, that doesn't go back though. So there was some. I can give you an estimated revenue sheet from year to date, and that will help you. Not estimated, a year to date for your revenue from last year. I can provide you with that so you can see what was over. I don't have it in here. From your FY 21-22 year to date report for revenue. So way you can see what we budgeted and what actually happened.
So we had a surplus of $923,026 in fiscal year 21, of which we applied $866,000.
No, $923,000 went back to offset taxes in last year.
Okay,
Okay, this year it ended, your surplus was $866,000. That went towards your $1 million article.
got you, that's why it's.
Okay, so the difference of $1 million in this 166 or 866 is what the tax was impacted by. Because the way the warrant article was written by the citizen was that it would be by unassigned fund balance, anything that doesn't cover it, anything beyond would be taxed by taxation.
Gotcha.
But I think what you're sitting here saying to yourself is, how do we not give $1 million back and see the tax rate go down?
Correct.
Partially. But what we also have to take into consideration is tax rate is one factor, but values are the other factor, right? So as you increase the values, the tax rates can go down. So it sounds great, the tax rate went down.
There's multiple
But if the
variables.
value of your house went up 10%, your effective tax rate went up with right?
I'm sure it did.
So the board of selectmen get the rest of that feast every year. But
Yeah.
it sounds great to say it went down by
48 cents.
48 cents per dollar sounds great. If the value of your house went up 100K, well, then it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. But that's, okay.
Yeah, so there are multiple factors that play in there. It's not just the school's portion.
Yep, no, I just wanted to.
I just like going back
The
to the,
school portion of the tax rate was higher.
and we also saw a decrease, or we're anticipating a decrease in adequacy aid.
Actually, inadequacy, yes, but I believe we were getting an increase in, state education tax. So there's still a difference, but just not as significant.
offset.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
offset. There's about a difference of 50,000 or so.
Okay.
So about 50,000 less approximately.
All right, do we have additional questions tonight regarding the budget outside what we discussed and those things and things? We're gonna revisit this on the 30th, this is the plan at least, with Superintendent Sherman. Because Amber will be somewhere else. But we will hopefully be able to wrap that up. There may be some additional changes that are predicated on an upcoming discussion we have to have in non-public. And those will hopefully be able to reflect.
They will. Any changes we talk about tonight, I'll report for the next meeting.
Is that possible?
If we move it on the 30th, it gets it to the budget committee a little bit ahead of what we normally would. We have another meeting the first week in December. So historically, that's typically when we would move it or finalize it. We can do it either or if we also have the ability, if the board thinks that we don't need that meeting on the 30th, we can certainly cancel it. Or not, it hasn't been posted yet, it's just tentatively scheduled. But certainly there's a sense from the budget committee that they want more time this year to look at all of the budgets. And so if we meet on the 30th, it will give approximately an additional week for them to look at it. So not a lot of time, but if it puts another meeting in with it, NBC can play with it. I do need to get the updated schedule to the NBC for Amber's availability, which I have.
Yes, we don't have that. We don't have that in my calendar. I think those are they on Tuesday still?
So the NBC meets Tuesdays, except it's been a little wonky this year because the boardroom at the town, there's been other committees meeting and they have been scheduled beforehand.
Just can't be a Thursday.
Just can't be a Thursday, which
I
we're
have
doing town
standing
stuff.
NBC on Thursday.
We're doing town stuff on Thursdays, and I've already mentioned to the chairman that we need to get the school stuff over on Tuesdays for our.
Yeah, as soon as we, because my calendar is already pretty jacked up.
So tomorrow, there's been a recently updated NBC schedule. I will send it to you. We can
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
cross it.
And what Patty and I will work out, we have to split it. And we had to do that before. When we had a meeting.
Yeah, if we can get the NBC, at least the stuff that's gonna involve you, I would like to try to cover in the meeting we have. So,
Sure.
we need to work, I'll work with the NBC on that.
Okay.
It's been a good process so far this year. Everybody's getting along great.
Good. As we should. We're all for the same cause.
Yeah, we're all trying to do the same thing. So, that being said, any other budget related questions before we move on? Seeing none? Okay, that brings us back to public comments. Anybody else have comments for us before we go into non-public? Mr. Burville?
Yeah, thank you. It's just, it's a funny comment I heard you make, Zach, that, how this town treats budgets.
But that was actually Jeff.
Oh, I apologize. Sitting back there half asleep. But we have to remember, right, that it's not the job of the voters to approve the budgets we bring to them. It's our job to bring them budgets that they'll approve. And I think we do great with budgets. I really do. When budgets are well defended and have spending priorities that the people agree with, budgets pass by big margins. And when they don't, when there's just sort of overall inflation everywhere and it's, kind of amorphous where the money's going, then they don't. And I think the townspeople are pretty generous, especially when we look at petitioned warrant articles, not petition warrant, standalone warrant articles, right? When we look at all the things that we propose on the municipal and school side and the amount of money that is sloshing around in those articles and the number that pass, that tells us what people value and what they want to see more of, and it tells us what they want to see less of. So I think we have to reflect back and learn from those things to be able to craft budgets that the community can get behind, that the community can support. And when we do that, I think we all win. $2,800 for a piece of diagnostic equipment for kids that may have impairments that will negatively impact their learning. That's the kind of thing you put in a budget that helps people vote for a budget, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing I would say 99.99% of people in Deerfield would support. To me, that's a no-brainer. It's too small for a standalone warrant article and it comes with other potential problems. But you put that as a warrant article and I'll bet dollars to donuts that would fly through by a huge margin. Because to me, that's the kind of spend. That's a direct student service. That's what people want to see spending on. They want to see spending on direct student services, things that actually go to helping our kids learn, new books, new lab equipment, stuff like that. Administrative costs, when people see the money is going to administrative costs, they turn off fast because it's just how they view it. So anyway, it's not easy. It's certainly not easy, especially in this economic environment. It's a tough time. It's not easy. But thank you for the time and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I try?
You're more than welcome to.
Comment about the $2,800 equipment. I don't know how grants are involved, but is that something that would be realistic to write a grant for to the state if it came out of like determining if we're going to put it in the budget or a warrant article or whatnot? Is that something that there could be aid for?
So I don't know if there's grants that would apply, would apply for. I think, I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
I think, so typically, at the end of every year, we have a little bit of money, sometimes a lot of money that's left over, because one thing, to the credit of our administration, they look at every dollar that goes out and they agonize, sometimes over things like the cost of pencils and paper, to make sure that if they can save a pencil, well, we can do a lot. So it's to their credit. They're the ones that find the money every year inside the budget. So I think realistically, when we're looking at those kind of year-end things, that's something that they'll just pop up and we'll deal with, as we're kind of doing a little bit of housekeeping at the end of the year.
I think to that credit too, though, if there's a list of things at the end of the year, and I don't know if other town folk feel the same, but if there's things that the kids need and the budget is tight, ask the families. Like, I'm more than willing, if I know you guys need tissues, here's some tissues, like that kind of stuff. So I think I haven't seen that need. I haven't seen fundraising for anything other than trips, perhaps, but like that kind of stuff, I'm more than willing to be engaged with. Yeah. Another comment about the bus issue that elementary.
It's all
bus-
Jeff.
Jeff, don't make Olivia stay at school earlier than she has to. The double bus run is killing us, but we're hanging in there.
It's Dale Transportation.
No, I know it is. I absolutely know it is. I'm just saying, I don't want to discourage them from giving us that.
It's lack of drivers, not.
So, thank you.
But it's been going on since before COVID.
Actually,
It
guys can put
is
it
a
all on me.
transportation challenge
Yeah.
nationwide.
we have bus issues. If we take that bus out and they can't provide it, I'll be the follow-up guy.
Jeff will personally drive the bus.
I'm Bobby Ann from Brown Road. I kind of want to switch gears. I know you guys were working on the septic. Is that like done?
So last thing I think that was left was hydro seeding. Do you know if that's been done?
It was supposed to finish like end of October.
Yeah, I believe, last time I checked, everything was ready to go for the loam and all that stuff. I didn't go up tonight to see if the hydro seeding was done That was the last, that would have been the final item, and then obviously the honoring. I will say this community buried a lot of sins in that hill 30 years ago, and we found every one of them. That project was not what we wanted it to be. And
So did that up the cost?
yes, and it was perpetuated by things that shouldn't have been done 30 years ago that were done. And the reason why we're on system number 4 is because of what was done over the last 30 years. So the good news is we will not have issues going forward because we did it right. But it should have been handled differently before and done differently before. And there was demons buried in that hill and rocks and nuggets and stumps and everything else. And none of it was where it should have been. So it's been corrected. Sinkholes will now no longer be a thing up there.
And of that, so the amended warrant article gives you $1 million for just repairs? Is that accurate?
Facilities repair and improvement. Yeah.
So there's still enough to keep going with the roof?
We have, yeah, because that added money into an existing fund. So we have enough for what we are projecting for the upcoming projects this year.
So that's a good thing. Like, it seems like you guys don't like the upped money. I'm confused with that. Like, that's a good thing, right? Having more money?
I don't think that we didn't like it. I think
The effect on the taxpayer.
I think there was concern on how that impacts the taxpayer and how we could utilize it. We found ways to utilize it. We're getting projects done.
And then any update on the paving? Because I know that was like good to
So,
go too.
That is a project we're hoping for the school itself. At the end of the year.
Cool. And then after the roof, what's like the next big repair that?
So the big projects for next summer are the roof. We talked about it the last meeting. I don't know if you were here.
I was wicked sick.
So it's the roof, the fire alarm, the rest of the fire alarm system. So the panel was done last year. So if you want it, we can refer to it as phase 2, but that's basically all the new control wiring and all the new devices, which is a fairly invasive project. We're exposing all that wiring. That project will be going on during school vacation weeks and then wrapping up as soon as the students are out of the building for the last step, which is actually installing new devices and buttoning it up. We have a fully functioning fire alarm system and panel right now. So this is just enhancing it, bringing it up to current code. It's grandfathered in its current status. The roof, which we're looking to do, again, it's going to be a pretty chaotic. We're just going to roll the students out of here and there's going to be a lot going on. So the roof will be the second major project, very major project. The roof is going to likely go from what's currently known as a ballasted system. So there's stone on top of our roof right now on the flat parts. That's all going to come off because you cannot reinstall a ballasted roof. So it'll all be the sealed membrane roof, which is newer, better technology, hopefully with some more insulation. And then the last big project we're trying to get done will be to put some asphalt on the parking lot up top. And then we're projecting now, the goal is to project into the summer of 24 on what could potentially be done for projects for funding out of a warrant article this year. So we set the money aside this year for the anticipated projects in 24. So you know you have the money to complete the projects because the next project that Chris is thinking he wants to tackle is going to be getting into all the classroom ventilators, basically the heating system inside.
Okay.
That'll be another big project.
Cool.
So we'll see where that goes. When we get into warrant articles, we'll have more conversations about that stuff and how that's working.
Awesome.
You knew it was coming.
Well, we've beaten the cat, so now we're whacking the mole again.
Coming back, excavating more demons.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I would support, I like Jeff's idea of coming back down to school buses. As long as 6 school buses would be enough to get all the students on without double busing, because double busing was the concern for a lot of parents last year. I personally would rather have my child on the school bus for an hour and a half versus having them wait at school for 45 minutes and then have them have a second round. There's that gap of who hands them off that I think is concerning as a parent, and knowing that they leave the school and are on the bus. And if that takes a little bit longer, then I think that's more reassuring than the double busing. So if there was enough for those lower numbers, I think I know a lot of us look at the school buses too, and there's less kids on them. I think a lot of parents are picking up their kids, and I wouldn't project personally seeing a big shift in that a lot of people would go back to pushing kids on the bus. If there is enough spaces on the school bus for less school buses, I think budgeting for that is a smart move. Thank you.
Anybody else? Come on up, Jackie.
Jackie Trimmer, Candia Road. Just wanted to touch on the modulars and the idea to possibly purchase them. While I know they've been so expensive for this town, and obviously it would be great to not pay $32,000 a year for them. I just hope you consider, in our effort to keep the momentum going, to get rid of the modulars so that we actually bring those students inside to the building that has bathrooms and running water. I hope you consider how purchasing them might make people think that, oh, we have a permanent solution or more permanent solution. I honestly don't know what would be better, but in my mind, my reaction was, no, don't buy them, just get rid of them, you know? So obviously we don't want to have the taxpayers throw money away. We're continue to throw money away on them, but I really hope you think about how that decision would maybe hinder the progress that we're trying to make to get rid of them in general. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, so we got what, 8:40? All right, so it is 8:40 per NHRSA 91A32, small letter C. I'm gonna look for a motion on non-vote.
So, second.
So moved moved by Andy, seconded by Jeff. Requires a roll call, and then I have to figure something out, Ms. Cohen, because I don't think you can participate in our non-public without being a sworn in member. So I think I have to, I'm sorry, but I think I have to throw you out the door.
It's fine.
All right, so Jeff is a yes, I'm a yes, yes, Ms. Cohen, thank you, we need to get you sworn in.
Do you want me to stick around or am I?
You are welcome to participate in whatever the conversation is afterwards. You're not in non-public, I don't think you're gonna find any way to participate in the conversation that occurs afterwards. So I would say, go home and see your family.
Have a good night.
Have a great night, thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, have a good night.
That usually takes a minute.
Can I have a